Ahoy, ahoy, all you hideously heinous hobgoblins! Sugar Pants dance in your direction with another dismal dud. 1988's Moontrap, a spooky science fiction feature about alien technology running amok and threatening the human species after being awoken by some analytical astronauts. Plus, we get to see Star Trek alum Walter Koenig without the ridiculous accent.
When we woke up, we had these waddies.
Now say nuclear vessels.
No.
So let's radio ground control and have them rattle off that sleaze docket so we can get this launch underway. We have 12 dead bodies, 2 cups blood, 4 naked breasts, 2 deaths by throw-in, laser blast to the arm, saw blade to the chest, alien lightning blasters, karate kick coffee, moon frolicking, and Bruce Campbell's impossible chin. And the rest of them too, I suppose. Our movie begins in the far distant past of July 20th,
1969, dudes!
with lots of government propaganda of a moon landing that never fucking happened. We get the classic footage for a while before the new and better looking footage takes over. An angry looking robot head bursts from the moon dust and scans the lunar surface. When the astronauts leave the moon, it sadly sinks back into the dust, and we jump to an exposition dump during the opening credits. We hear the radio chatter between Colonel Jason Grant and ground control. Nothing too dramatic, mostly Grant asking about the weather back home and golf. It's just a routine, boring space mission, and Grant is getting bored of it.
The final frontier. The space shuttle Camelot journeys into the void, braving the dark depths of the universe.
Well, you know, if anyone's earned the right to do a shitty Shatner impression, it's the one of the poor bastards who had to sit next to him for 59 episodes. Grant communicates about the low quality of the mission's food before they remind him the injured bird will be within range soon. He wakes up his mission partner Ray Tanner by setting off an alarm. The two buddies bust each other's chops like good buddies do, really hammering home the buddy-buddy nature of their buddiness. Eventually, their scanner goes off and they assume it's the broken satellite they're looking for, but the scans show the object is a 1/4 mile in length. Grant contacts Mission Control and they say they didn't pick it up because it wasn't following a normal satellite orbit. Tanner puts a scan on the object and pulls it up on the monitor.
Flex control from Brawl. The last word in Shavers.
Grant agrees it looks like a ship and redirects their trajectory to intercept it. Mission Control says its orbit is decaying and is coming down to Earth, but will not survive re-entry through the atmosphere. Once close enough, Grant says he's going out, and the movie just skips any suiting up and airlock bullshit just to get us to the good stuff faster. Thank you, movie!
Just incredible. I can't find any other words for it.
I should have said a poem.
Grant notices some strange symbols on the hull before moving towards a breach. Hey, man, if you ever find an egg-looking thing from the spooky alien craft that nobody noticed until you were right on top of it, don't touch the fucking thing. After picking up the giant tick, Grant makes the genius decision to bring it back to the spacecraft. That's when we get to see a corpse that drifted for billions of light years to do spooky jump scare at that exact moment. And again, the movie skips all the traditional filler bullshit. We don't see Grant go back to the ship. We just cut to the shuttle landing and instantly look over their findings. Again, thank you, movie! They come to the determination that the body is of an ancient astronaut that landed on the moon 14,000 years ago. But in true 80s fashion, there's a skeptical douchebag who's only being a skeptical douchebag for the sake of being a skeptical douchebag. Mr. Haskell just doesn't believe anything the scientists announce because it's coming up on budget review time, and nothing gets the taxpayers hard for NASA like a nifty space mystery. The group takes a break to go cool off, and with no one watching, the intergalactic football wakes up. Aww, well, isn't he just the cutest with— oh dear God, kill it with fire! The little robot goes straight to work and scans the desiccated corpse. Doing an age regression, we see that the corpse used to be Epic Lloyd from Epic Rap Battles of History. Heck, it's even able to recreate its suit, spaceship, and deduce the precise launch coordinates from the lunar surface. After getting its intel, the robot short-circuits the computers, causing a building-wide power outage. Our crew are stuck in the elevator just long enough to deal with the argument they specifically were trying to avoid. Haskell still believes the story is bogus, so Grant suggests they just file their own report and go over Haskell's head. Finally, Grant says they have to go back to the moon to find out if there's any ancient base hidden there. Haskell asks where they're supposed to get the hardware or the crew to do such a mission. Tanner says some leftover Apollo equipment is in storage at Cape Canaveral, and Grant volunteers himself and Tanner for the mission. Back at the lab, the robot starts snatching any materials it can get its grubby little welding torch on. Finally, out of the elevator, our crew drops the big one on Haskell. The Soviets are planning a lunar mission within the next 2 years. A government employee finds the isolation ward a complete mess and calls security saying the body is missing. And in keeping with the "I gotta check this out" cliche, she decides to snoop around until an errant claw grabs her by the face and throws her across the room. We then get to see some clumsy robotic legs stomp out the door. In the break room, Tanner's pissed off at the malfunctioning coffee machine, while Haskell insists that the lunar mission remain a matter of national security and top secret. Which is more reason why Grant insists the mission be led by himself and Tanner. He then suggests Major George Beck to be their orbiter pilot. Haskell says it's still up to the president, but Grant says to not even suggest going back to the moon without him. Apparently, he missed out on the previous lunar mission, and he will not miss his chance a second time. Security finally makes it to the isolation ward and finds the dead employee. The radio calls in to tell them all to get down to the sub-basement and bring every weapon they can because there's
Something in the corridor. Something huge. I don't know what the hell it is.
Back in the break room,
We don't take no shit from a machine.
the security team runs through the break room and our astronauts follow to see one angry-looking bastard made up of metal and fleshy bits. The lead scientist runs in front of the security, insisting that they have to take the chance at communication first. He slowly approaches and tries to talk, but it blasts him in the arm.
Get the son of a bitch!
Security pelts the machine with copious amounts of ammo that do absolutely nothing. Suddenly the robot goes all Palpatine on their asses, hailing them with force lightning. Eventually Grant heads up into the conveniently placed ceiling vent that's plenty big enough for a human to crawl through. Tanner and the security keep the robot's attention while Grant opens an access hatch and shoots the robot's head dome at point-blank range, dropping it into a pile of scrap. We cut to Grant's home where he and his son are having a push-up competition. We get some clunky exposition from the son letting us know his folks are divorced when the phone rings. A drunk Tanner is out on the town and talking way too loudly about things he shouldn't be. So Grant has no choice but to go pick his ass up. So we're heading to...
Where the breasts may be fake, but man do they shake.
Where you swear like a sailor and wish you could nail her.
Tanner's doing his best Bruce Campbell impersonation, which is pretty spot on if you ask me. That's when Major Beck climbs up from the floor. Nothing like a little pre-launch drunken hootenanny, huh? Grant rolls up and Tanner tells him the mission has been given the green light as the recent attack has everyone very nervous that there might be more up there. And once again, I have to point out something that I really appreciate this movie for doing, and that's skipping a lot of the unnecessary bullshit that could have been used for film padding. No sooner does Tanner say,
We're gonna be doing a little search and destroy on the goddamn moon.
we fade to the goddamned moon. No training montage, no launch sequence, no landing sequence, no bullshit. 36 minutes in, we're going to the moon, and we're on the fucking moon. Grant's standing on the lunar surface, taking it all in as it's a sight he never thought he'd see. Tanner approaches in a lunar rover, and we get some moon frolicking. He joins his partner and they head out in search of the machine base, but something already knows they've landed and takes a liking to the lunar lander. The two check in with Beck in the orbiter, who's scanning the surface, and he tells them they're heading towards an object of interest. Unfortunately, the rover hits an incline it can't handle, so they have to continue on foot. Once they reach the peak of the hill, that's when they see it. A base built into the side of a hill, which is why it wasn't seen from orbit. A light flashes, and Grant wonders if it was for them. Somehow the rover was able to make it to the entrance of the base. Tanner sees something in the space dust and clears it to find a human-looking skull. Grant then goes to the cargo and breaks out the weapons. Once armed, the two approach the entrance, but something's watching them look over the evidence of a battle between humanoids and machine. Inside, Grant suggests the room may have religious significance. They find a handprint switch on the wall and activate it. Inside, they find more humanoid bones when the room lights up. A blast of dust flies out, and they approach the center console. Brushing aside the thick layer of dust, they find a human-looking woman inside. The console pops open, and a hand reaches up to push aside the lid. They help her up, but she grabs one of their guns. Grant takes his helmet off, and I guess that blast of dust was life support putting oxygen into the room. Grant tries to communicate with the woman, and we learn her name is Mira. Once she's on her feet, she moves to the skeleton nearby and removes a metal bracelet from it. Obviously, it was someone she knew before being put on ice. Meanwhile, a giant robot has approached the lander and has called dibs. Beck radios our team to tell them they need to get back and check it out, as his scans show it's moving and it's their only way off the rock. Mira opens a compartment with a spacesuit and joins the team, shedding a few final tears for the fallen comrade. Suddenly the lights go out and a robotic bug drops from the ceiling. A few shots to the dome puts it out of commission, and Mira says one word.
Helium.
Beck calls in to Mission Control to report that the team has found someone or something and monitors our team, who are hauling as much ass as the lunar rover can do. Which isn't great. He tells them they should be within visual contact of the lander, but they don't see anything. All they see is the landing site, but the lander is completely missing. Fortunately, the Kalium have left tracks for our trio to follow. The team drives the rover until the batteries run out and then continue on foot. Hey, remember earlier when I was praising this movie for not being crammed full of filler, delaying the good stuff? Well, this is where it shows up. Undercranked footage of slow hiking across a blue-filtered set and inconsequential dialogue for a bit. It's not the worst film padding I've seen, but in the interest of fairness, I feel it necessary to point it out since I made such a big deal of the lack of it earlier. Finally, our crew finds a spacecraft and realize what the Kalium have been doing for the past 14,000 years, building a rocket so they can leave the moon. Grant and Tanner argue over who's going to stay behind while the other investigates, but before they can finalize the plan, a Kalium bursts from the dust, knocking Grant aside. Tanner blasts the fucker, and the movie actually respects the rules concerning the vacuum of space and doesn't give us gunfire. But a second Kalium attacks from below, grabbing Tanner and tossing him against the nearby dune. Grant blows it away, again without sound effects, and checks on Tanner, who isn't looking great. Beck calls from the orbiter, but is blasted by a bolt of force lightning that knocks out his control panel. Something pulls him out of orbit, and he begins falling to the moon, crashing in a giant ball of light in the distance. Tanner reminds Grant that
We don't take no shit from a machine.
Right before dying, as something watches from a distance. Grant and Mira follow the tracks back to the lunar rover and unpack a space tent. The two go inside and take a break from their suits. Grant is all upset that his entire crew is dead. He's stranded on the moon and that he woke Mira up just to die. Mira tries to comfort him, and it's time for some moon humping! We get a little alien nudity before we fade away to see Tanner's corpse being grabbed by Kalium tentacles. Our amorous astronauts suit back up just in time for the tent to be ripped open to shreds by Deadite Tanner. And once again, I'm pointing out my respect to the sound department as the gunfire makes noise in the oxygen-filled tent, but all sound is silenced as soon as we re-enter the vacuum. Grant laments over Tanner's twisted robotic body, and the two are captured by two gigantic Kalia. Well, at least now we get a size reference. The two are carried aboard the Kalium spaceship, which has blasted off the lunar surface, heading straight for Earth. Inside, our two wake up to find they're bound to the wall. Grant notices the nearby compartments full of machinery and human pieces and comments that they're just spare parts. In drops a grabby, cutty little robot who starts slicing pieces off of Mira. Grant breaks free from his restraints and starts bashing the robot with a pipe or something.
We don't take no shit from a machine.
Yay! He said the thing! He frees Mira and they suit up to find their way off the ship. Grant finds a long cable and assumes that's the way out. And the surgical Kalium pops up for one last attack. Grant blasts it to pieces and they begin their climb. Back on Earth, NASA's launching a rescue ship, only this time we get an extended launch sequence as the shuttle leaves the atmosphere. Hey, at least this is the only one we got. There could have been 3 to pad this bitch out. Grant and Mira climb the cable in zero gravity and assume that heading towards the ship's core should be the way out. The two drift down a long corridor where they find thousands of Kalium pods ready for a planet full of scrap metal and scrap humans. The second shuttle's scanners see the Kalium ship and send images back to ground control, and we get a sweeping shot of stunned faces and 80s mustaches. Grant passes a convenient Jumbotron screen showing that the Kalium ship is aware of the rescue shuttle approaching. Looking ahead, Grant sees the lunar lander fused into the wall. Conveniently, the last piece the ship needed to launch. So I guess technically Earth was in zero danger since the Kalium had no way of finalizing the rocket until we went up there to snoop around, giving them some desperately needed scrap. Technically, we did mention the upcoming Russian mission, but surely we could have convinced the Soviets to trust us to not go to the moon, right? Right? Peeling away the lander's outer layer, Grant finds a control panel for the self-destruct mechanism. As the shuttle approaches, they arm their missiles to blast the Kalium ship out of space. Unfortunately, the Kalium ship isn't defenseless and fires more force lightning, knocking the shuttle away. Grant sets the lander's detonator at 5 minutes, which alerts ground control to its existence. They radio the shuttle to say if they do not get confirmation that Grant is aboard, they are to destroy the spacecraft. Watching the timer count down, Grant doesn't notice a Kalium pod attack. He fires his gun, which sends him and Mira flying backwards in zero gravity. He continues to fire, launching them out the gigantic hole in the ship's hull, conveniently towards the rescue shuttle. The clock ticks down to 0 and... nothing.
Goddamn government contractors.
But after a short delay, the Kalium ship is blown up so efficiently there's not even a speck of debris left. Again, very convenient. Skip ahead some time, and Grant and Mira are dressed up for a date. Mira notices a falling star and laments at how silly and difficult learning English has been. Now that she can speak, she tells us she was chosen to be the warning about the Kalium, but she said she wanted to die with her people instead. But now that it's over, she's happy to be with Grant. We cut to a nearby scrapyard and find out that the falling star was, in fact, a Kalium pod. The camera pans back to show the little bastard has plenty of new material to work with, and we hear the ominous sounds of the machine getting to work. Roll the credits.
But wait! There's more!
We get a phone call at the end of the credits with Grant making sure that NASA's been watching for any objects falling from the skies. Now it's over. Right? Moontrap was directed by Robert Dyke in his debut in the director's chair. Prior to this, he worked in visual effects on Evil Dead 2 and Harry and the Hendersons. To be honest, I thought this was a pretty good effort for a first-timer. Unfortunately, Robert wouldn't direct again for 12 years. In 2007, he directed Inalienable, a movie written by Walter Koenig. Robert also directed the long-awaited sequel, Moontrap, Target Earth, in 2017. But I haven't seen that one. Maybe I'll get around to it in a future episode. Speaking of Walter Koenig, naturally everyone should know him from his Star Trek days, but he's still got plenty of acting credits to his name. As of this recording, he's got 77, with a couple projects on the way. Bruce Campbell is another name no one in my audience should be unfamiliar with, but I am kind of shocked that this is my first movie with him. Making his official movie debut with The Evil Dead, he hit the ground running and really hasn't taken a break. Maniac Cop, Darkman, Waxworks 2, Lost in Time, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., Congo, Escape from L.A., McHale's Navy, Xena Warrior Princess, and Hercules The Legendary Journeys, Bubba Hotep, Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, Oz the Great and Powerful, Ash vs. Evil Dead, and he's still adding to that list that I'm sure will be well over the 165 that he had at the time I recorded this. And now that we've got our feet back on the ground, it's time to say goodbye for now, kiddies. But don't worry, I'll be back before you know it because I've still got gruesome goodies for you all. So until I greet you again, this is your luscious lunatic Sugar Pants. See you in your dreams.
Out of order! Fuck! Even in the future, nothing works!